You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
Hello and welcome back to the Integration Station. I've got a wonderful guest to share with you guys today. We've got Janelle backstage, and she's the proud owner of Bluemoodfood, which is a really awesome Instagram feed that I've been checking out. And not only that, there's also a blog that you have access to, all kinds of cool stuff. So we're going to dive into everything that really brought Janelle to this place and also what she's up to. So without further ado, I'll bring her on and we can dive right in. Hey, Janelle.
Hello, Ashley. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's a big honor to be here and to be here to talk about mushrooms.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really becoming more of a conversation these days, and I think not just inside of this what was once a niche community, but it's really like with a lot of people, especially with these decriminalization movements that are going on. I know you've had your hand in a lot of this for quite a while, so if there's an introduction that you want to share, or just let us know, how your own personal journey led you to these places of mushrooms and the exciting potential of psychedelics as well.
Definitely. So I've always been in love with nature. I've always had my, face in towards the ground looking at things. And so I think firstly, I love everything nature and natural. I got interested in mushrooms specifically after following a little bit of a different career path. I worked as a teologist for a little while, and then I started working with cannabis as a cannabis educator. And so I spent 4 years doing that, and I really loved the plant. I found a lot of personal healing with cannabis, and I really appreciated that that was an option that was legally available to me as first a medical user and then as a recreational user instead of opioids. I have a couple of health conditions, and doctors are all too happy to just be like, oh, here's a Vicodin. And that was not working well for me. And so there was a point in my life when I made a choice that I'm going to look into natural medicines whenever I can, because they had benefited me more than, what the doctors were telling me to do. So I started with a medical card in about 2008. And then I really just fell in love with the plant, and I had recreationally used mushrooms up until that point, but didn't become seriously interested in them until the Johns Hopkins studies came out saying that it was a breakthrough therapy for treating depression and anxiety, both of which I was no stranger to at that point in my life. So I had, like I said, used recreationally mushrooms growing up, and they were some of my favorite experiences. And I was looking into exploring them to use for treating anxiety and treatment-resistant depression, as I had tried about 5 different pharmaceuticals, all kinds of forms of therapy, and I just was not getting the results that I felt were possible, but I wasn't getting there. So with the help of my doctor, I weaned off of my SNRI that I was on, and I gave microdosing a chance. And I had some supply issues. I ran into some issues with finding a consistent supply for microdosing. So my husband decided to grow mushrooms in 2018, And we started 2019 was like the year of just growing mushrooms. We grew so many mushrooms and I found so much healing, and I was able to gift them to friends and have great experiences. And I felt like I had really climbed my way out of a depressive hole that I had been in for decades. And I was kind of having this epiphany about what am I going to do with my life? I want to help people experience that this is possible. And I, at the time, was having some safety issues with my job. I got robbed and the pandemic had started. And I didn't feel like it was the right space for me any longer. So I decided to take a big jump and just devote what time and energy I had to learning how to make things with mushrooms, and spend time on that. And I haven't looked back. It's been 3 years since I started Bluemoodfood, and I am very fortunate that I've been able to help several people learn how to use microdosing, macrodosing, answer questions they have along the way. And by no means do I feel like I'm an expert on any of these topics, but I have had over 20 years of personal experience using mushrooms specifically. I have had lots of anecdotal evidence from people I've talked to, and I do a ton of research. I go down a ton of rabbit holes reading about different things mushroom related. So that's been how I've gotten into this, and kind of what keeps me here is I just think the potential for healing is so great. But with that said, there's also, some legality issues in this country. And not every place is as friendly to growing mushrooms as every other place. And the war on drugs, I've done a lot of reading on that, and I've found that I feel it is very racially motivated and not scientifically motivated. And so I would like to do anything in my power to flip that and to change laws. And I was lucky enough to be involved a little bit in the Decriminalized Nature Seattle chapter. And then I moved in 2021 to Washtenaw County, Michigan, where mushrooms have been decriminalized since 2020, and have been involved in kind of the greater statewide efforts that are coming up for 2024. And I urge anyone that lives in a place where mushrooms are not legal or not decriminalized to start writing your council members, start finding your local chapters, and know that there are other people out there that want to decriminalize mushrooms, and they want healing to be accessible. And there's a huge network of people, and that's how laws are changed, is finding local community that wants to stand behind that.
Yeah, it's so important to know that you're not alone in these things. Like, you had an asset, it sounds like, in your journey. You had a supportive husband. There's a lot of people out there that feel very alone in this. And here's the thing, like, you can go out and you can find community. You can find people who are on Instagram that are, using similar hashtags or looking up similar things. You can reach out to people that are going through similar mental health issues and see if there's maybe somebody who wants to do a journey with you, or interested in microdosing, or know somebody who's done it, so you can start, diving into these things. And then there's also going directly, like, using what resources you have around you when it comes to legalities or anything like that. Maybe there is different groups or meetups and things like that too. It doesn't have to be a solidarity thing. One of the things that mushroom teaches us is that everything's all connected, and that nobody really is alone. And there's this collective going on. So it's just about tapping into that. And another thing I really admire about finding you on Instagram and just the content that you're sharing is that through these years of experience, you've found a way to take your direct experience, that which you have been understanding through research and reading, and I'm sure testimonies and working with people and things too. You're integrating all this together and taking stuff that is so complex and making it so simple. Like these posts that you're putting out, it's all the questions that people are literally asking, and you put it in the most simple way. You're like the Einstein of the psychedelic realm right now.
Well, I wrote down what kind of like the top questions I get are, because I do get a ton of questions, but that's also kind of going forward. My goal is to like, how do you process all these new studies? You know, there's like literally tons of information that's coming out, and it didn't start that way. Like you were saying, it was much more of a niche community, and now it's just growing exponentially. And you know, how do you find how do you find the right information? How do you find where to start? What do you know, it can definitely be overwhelming. So that's definitely a part of my goal going forward, is like to break it down and make it so that someone's mom could start this, or you know, I'm saying someone's mom. I do have people's moms that start this that are very intimidated, and they've grown up in the era knowing that, you know, drugs are bad, and you know, and so there's a lot of stigma to break down, and then beyond that, you know, get the information out there. And the thing about mushrooms is like they're very subjective, is also the hard part about making these infographics, is it's so subjective. You know, the right amount for me might not at all be the right amount for you, or vice versa. So it does take a little bit of trial and error to kind of figure out what's best. And if I can be helpful in any way of, you know, breaking it down, I do plan to continue with the infographics. I just find myself getting kind of bogged down with emails and making things too. So, but going forward, that is the long-term goal, is I'd like to have some kind of a guide or something that I could provide to people that are looking for some information that they can digest easily and you know, learn about these things. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, it's almost like when you go to buy a new car or anything like that, it's like, especially if it's your first car, it's so exciting. And, you know, they're handing you things that you can like physically touch and like read about, and, you know, and that makes a difference. I loved when I made my medicine bag for Cambo and working with that. And people who were traveling to me for this medicine were actually printing it off and having it as a physical thing. That's what's cool about these infographics and things too, is that, you know, it's one page just as a reference. It's something that you can pass around if you want to take it to that next step, or kind of be underground. Maybe you're not a social media connoisseur, but, you know, it's something that can still be printed off and shared or recreated in another way, maybe to be more adaptable to yourself. Maybe it's in a journal or a bullet journal for somebody who's watching now, and you make your own guide from, you know, that being a template, and then you experiment and you see, okay, well, what's different from, you know, this kind of average that's coming through, and where I am specifically. 'Cause, you know, when I started looking at those dosing and usage charts, I was like, whoa, you know, I've been working with mushrooms for over 20 years myself, and I have such a low tolerance to them. Like, I never built up tolerance. Like, they take me for a ride. When I first learned about microdosing, I was mom of a 3-year-old. Before that, I thought everything had to be heroic dose, like go big or go home. Home, like being astral. But
I was like kind of the same, like 3.5 grams, or like, what are you even doing, you know, at first.
Yeah, but microdosing is really great, but I can take a really small dose. Some other people, when they're making their microdosing capsules, it's like 250 milligrams. Like, I have to break that up or call in. I think I'm my own boss, but
see, that's my dose is 250. So I'm that outlier on that. Like, just, there's a huge range for sure.
There really is.
Yeah, my husband's like can take like half of what I take, and he's like very affected by it. And I don't know. We're all different, I guess. And that has to do a little bit with like how we metabolize things. They say too, there's certain medications that can block psilocybin. And I have been on a number of them. So they say that even though I've been off of them for a long time, that can somewhat still affect how psilocybin affects my serotonin receptors versus somebody else's. So I don't know if that's playing in currently for me, but I know I take a much higher microdose and macrodose than comparatively my husband. So
yeah, I have heard that from people who are on SSRIs and things and weaning themselves off as well. So it is a more common thing, I think, but it's also very bio-individual, like any kind of diet. No one diet works for anybody. And even if you find a diet that works for you, it's going to change depending on the season, depending on how you age, all these things. It's not the same. If you're eating the same food that you ate as a child, you're going to eat as an elder, it's probably because of an addiction or a food sensitivity or something, you know. And I know that's a little off topic, but I think it's very bio-individual working with psychedelics as it is with nutrition.
I noticed, I think on your website that you say something about eating very clean leading up to a journey, and that's definitely, that can play into it. You know, I do get questions sometimes like, why is this not working? And it has to do with metabolism. It can do with having already eaten a giant meal of some sort that your body is still working to process, and then you take mushrooms and they're not going through your stomach as they should. So I usually recommend when you take mushrooms to do it on an empty stomach, like whether you've been fasting or just, you know, without any prior food sitting there doing its thing, for sure.
Yeah, another one that can help too, if somebody is, I guess, not getting the effects that they want or not fast enough, is the lemon teching. If you do a lemon tech, especially after fasting, like that's, you know, an astro dose no matter what it is.
You should feel that one.
Yeah, you should feel it. I've done that by mistake before, even with a microdose, and I made a lemon tea and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna put the blue honey in it, and I forgot about it, and then the next morning I just chugged it back. I was in the shower and it hit me and I'm like, yeah, empty stomach, fast. Like, you know, it was a fast experience, because that also happens, but it was very powerful, and it would have been a really small dose, like the end of my blue honey jar. So just adding the hot water. I'm
That was
curious.
not a microdose.
Yeah, no, not a microdose at that point.
Yeah.
I'm curious, you know, just in this landscape of psychedelic mushrooms, how do you envision things changing, both, like, you know, in the mushroom realm for people like ourselves, or like the legacy market, but also in legalities? What do you see happening?
What do I envision happening? Well, in terms of like, just in general, I think more people are talking about mushrooms, more people are open to trying them, and more people are healing using them and finding a lot of success with that. And so I do think that's going to continue to spread. Recently, there's been some very bad press about mushrooms that I hope doesn't continue. I don't know if you've heard of this plane incident, but I hope that things like that don't cloud the overall you know, knowledge that mushrooms can be healing. And with that, right now they're a Schedule 1 drug. And so what that means is that they have no medical usage, no known medical usage, no known medical benefits, and they also have a high potential for abuse, which I know both of those things to not be true. So I would hope that they are taking a look at the scheduling of psilocybin on a federal level. I know that state by state, it slowly is starting to become decriminalized in certain places. There's actually quite a few cities and a couple states that seem like they're pretty on board with this. And so I can only hope that that's going to continue. More cities are going to pass. I know in Michigan, where I'm living, 2024, we're looking to hopefully get it on the ballot and pass it statewide for decriminalization. I know California has gone back and forth recently, and places like Washington and, you know, Washington, D.C. There's a lot of movement happening around the country. But overall, I'm hoping that federally we take a strong look at the scheduling of all drugs, not just psilocybin. I know that there has recently been some talk of moving cannabis from a Schedule 1 drug category down to a Schedule 3 drug, which I think personally it should not be a scheduled drug at all. But so I'm hoping that by rescheduling psilocybin and with these new studies, I know that the FDA is like doing a lot of research on things like MDMA for therapy and ketamine for therapy. And I think psilocybin is up next in terms of substances that they're going to be studying more in depth, and hoping that they come to some conclusions that make sense, and we can start having some laws based on what makes sense and science versus somebody else's agenda. So, and what I'm hoping that does overall is open up access for people. Right now, it is legal to buy spores in most of the USA. And so I think right now there's a lot of DIY or, hobby mycologists that are starting to grow mushrooms. And that's definitely a growing area. No pun intended. But so lots of people are growing. There's lots more genetics that are starting to happen in that area too, as more and more people are getting involved in mycology. And so you'll start to notice more available strains. I'm also noticing as time goes on, more and more people are scamming online too. So I'm hoping that aspect can go away a little bit. Beautiful.
The hillbilly.
Nice. I haven't grown hillbillies, but I love their little wavy, their little caps. They're so cute.
It's just opening up.
Nice. Beautiful.
Yeah. You got to get a hammock up and stuff, a couple more days.
Yes.
Enjoy.
They go fast.
They do. Yeah. So, yeah, I think full moon's 2 days from now, but they'll be open tonight.
Nice.
So, oh, yeah. Okay. On this, I'm just going to share our sponsors, and then we'll have you back and we'll dive more into, just all things mushrooms. All right. We'll see you in just a little bit.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Are you a cannabis content creator? Are you looking for a place to have your content seen? If you answer yes to both questions, then you need to check out cbgtv.com. CBG TV, broadcasting to a worldwide audience. Find us at cbgtv.com.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor. If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
PACE Radio is the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network.
Legacy 420 have an awesome array of cannabis-infused beverages, from pop to Nature's Nectar's teas, all in amazing flavors. What a selection! We even have a delicious mango-infused juice, and let me tell you, it's delicious.
Everything is infused in-house, so we buy our syrup from, the same place where everybody else buys their syrup for their pop, and the infusion is done in the lab. It's all canned here, labeled here, produced 100% on Tynaniga.
We have 2 lines of drinks. One's called our Nature's Nectar. That was our original line that we came out with. And then we also have a line under the Red E brand. We have them in 10 milligrams, 30 milligram, and 60 milligram cans.
What a great selection for a get-together with friends or after a long day. Remember, if you want to wet your whistle with on-site lab-tested products, come see your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Hello, I wanted to welcome back Janelle. She's from Bluemoodfood, and we're really excited to have her today. She's been talking a little bit about decriminalization and just her own personal journey with mushrooms. I'd like to really dive deep now into really what some common misconceptions are about psilocybin, things that come up for you that you encounter, and just how overall you address them for anybody who may be new to this realm and tuning into the show today.
So, common misconceptions. Microdosing means you're tripping. Like that, I think that's kind of a common one. Like, oh, but she's on mushrooms. She must be, experiencing a trip. She's seeing things. Like, that's not true. I think an effective microdose isn't one where you're going to be affected in those ways. I think it's going to cause you to be a little more focused or a little more in tune with things instead. So, I don't really consider mushrooms drugs. Like the word drug doesn't apply. It grows in the earth. It grows on every continent except for Antarctica. So, it's natural.
That we know of. There's a lot we don't know about Antarctica.
Who knows? We're going to find some in the ocean.
Yeah. That may be where it all came from, if like there's some, maybe a meteor or something like that, something from outer space. Like the way that mushrooms live and breathe, they're one of the only things that could live in those kinds of climates. And if that came and fell into the water and created the algae, and then that algae came onto land with the waves and the tide changes, and the next thing you know, there's some mushroom fruit bodies. Like there's evidence that before there was actually any plants, that there was mushrooms, big, huge mushrooms, and you can still see some of these mushroom masses. And it's absolutely insane, this realm. And I love that you use the term rabbit hole when discussing it, because there are many to go down.
I've gone down that one too. I'm like, same with octopus. They came here on the meteorites. Yep.
I saved an octopus earlier this year, and I learned one of the greatest lessons of my life. I was called down to this water on Sunshine Coast in British Columbia, and I thought, okay, maybe I'm going to go like skinny dipping or something. I got to get in here. And then I went into where I was called to go, and I'm like, oh, I can't do that. There was like this scary thing in there. I don't know what it was, but something told me it's alive. And that's what octopuses do. They change their shape, they change their color, everything. This had no shape. This was like just this. But something told me it was alive and that like it could hurt me. So I got a rock and I was trying to like get it up, and it kind of got sucked into the caves, but it was just like totally in surrender. And there were so many lessons in those moments for me, but I did eventually get it up. It got its shape back, got it into a tidal pool, and it was good. It was like just such an amazing, incredible experience. But yeah, I'm with you on those octopus teachings. I think there was a documentary too, My Octopus Teacher. It's really good.
I saw that.
Yeah.
There's a book, My Entangled Life. I don't know if you've read it.
Merlin Sheldrake.
They talk about how the algae, was here first, and then the fruiting bodies, and basically that's what all life comes from. It's pretty fascinating. So I think there's a man, Darren LeBaron. He has a quote that says, we are not humans having a mushroom experience. We are mushrooms having a human experience. And I love that because, we're literally we're part fungi too. So
yeah. We have more DNA in common with the mushrooms than we do with most other things around us. And we are more microbial than we are actually human. It's a really cool fractal of things. I think Dr. Seuss may have hacked into that a little bit, and Horton Hears a Who. And, there's so much in here. I love that you mentioned Merlin Sheldrake too. Like, The Entangled Life was such an impactful book. His dad, though, what was his name again? Rupert Sheldrake. He worked really closely with Terence McKenna, and he had quite a few TED Talks banned. One of them, I believe, was on the War of Consciousness, and another one on resonant something morphic resonance. Yeah, there's a couple banned TED Talks though, but really cool family. And it gotta be cool naming their kid Merlin.
Yes, my friend named their cat Merlin, and I think that's cool. But
yes.
Merlin, that's even better.
Yeah, it's just that step further into the fractal experience.
In terms of I'm trying to think of other misconceptions about mushrooms. I think a big one, especially in America, we're kind of mycophobic here. There's a big kind of rumor, you can't touch all mushrooms. There's ones that are poisonous and toxic. And although that is true, touching a mushroom isn't, at least in the US, we don't have fire coral mushroom, which can burn your skin. But there's not any mushroom that you would touch that's really going to have an ill effect on you. Not to say that I would encourage getting close to deadly mushrooms, but I
Unless
would
you want to make poisons.
Right. In which case, there's some potent ones out there.
Yeah, exactly.
But what's funny to me is that these deadly mushrooms, those aren't the ones that are illegal. You can find those in fields and encounter them all you want. So
yeah, and that's saying something. How can you make something illegal that's still growing? Cannabis used to grow wild. I visualize it, and maybe from psychedelic experiences, but being more like a sumac in the past, where it would just grow big and wild and have those big flowers. That's how I visualize it. And it's not like that anymore. Even if it was a plant, just a regular herb, it was still, or smaller flowers. It doesn't matter. It's not here the same way. Now it has to be cultivated by us. It'll still grow around the world. Mushrooms, they can get rid of. They're everywhere.
The illegality impacts the growing too, because with cannabis, there's a lot of landrace strains, the ones that grow naturally wild out in the world, that have basically been eradicated now, and you have to grow them indoors and keep them away from people that can smell them and that kind of a thing. And so that's changed the whole cannabis growing thing. And I think with mushrooms too, primarily people grow cubensis at home. There is wood loving species that can grow in some parts of the world outside, but you primarily have cubensis that grow at home too.
Yeah, I think my point there was just that there are still so many that you can forage everywhere. Yes. Whereas marijuana or cannabis or whatever you want to call it, it's not as common. There's certain spots in the world you can still find it, but a lot of it, it was absolutely eradicated. And, we can bring it back. I remember being in South America, and it was hard sometimes to find cannabis, but once we did, it would still be seedy, and we just throw the seeds everywhere, rogue, only good vibes. Bring it back. There's just this collective vision for, us hippies that were out there.
But they still, you're right. There's over 200, because they're still finding them all the time. Species of magic mushrooms that grow naturally all over the world. I love it.
Yeah. And I like what you're saying about it being a common misconception too, like this thing that there are scary. Yeah. All mushrooms are magic, but some only one. So you do want to know what those differences are.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean be scared and stay away. Why
There's
aren't we
tons of research you can do to figure out which ones are toxic and which ones are edible. And like, I love learning about that kind of stuff and foraging too. I found some great edible mushrooms this year living in Michigan, had some great stuff. So it's cool to learn about your environment and what grows locally too. So
yeah, because food is getting crazy expensive. Medicine is not all it's cracked up to be. And
black trumpet mushrooms are so good.
There's so many tasty foods out there, and so many medicinal that are free as well. Free food and medicine for everyone. And there's poisons too that are legal.
Absolutely.
In case you need to defend yourself, who knows? I'm from Canada, so guns are almost illegal now. You guys are still in the States and know how to defend yourselves, but we're almost communist up there. I've been fleeing to the States. I spent most of the year in the States, and it's not a first world country here anymore either. But I've also spent time in third world countries, and it's there. You guys still have a lot of beauty here. You still have a lot of amenities. There's pros and cons to all of it, but you guys, I think, are definitely more freedom loving than in Canada, even though it's called the land of the free. It's like, I don't know. Things are changing.
Things are really changing a lot. And I just hope that whoever gets into office is a little bit more pro learning about psychedelics and judging them based on their scientific merit than anything else.
Yeah. Could you elaborate too for anybody? Because I get this all the time. One of the main questions I get is, so now I've worked with the mushrooms and now I want to make my whole life about mushrooms. Like, how can I help make these more legal? What can I do in this space? How can I be of service? So can you just elaborate on different efforts that you've taken to help decriminalize, but also how any individual that's watching today could really start participating, taking action?
Well, I mentioned reaching out to your local chapter. I'm specifically talking about Decriminalize Nature. They're a nationwide program that has been working to change the laws in all of the places where the laws have changed. And so decriminalizenature.com, if you're close to any major city, they probably already have a group. Or there are also psychedelic societies spread out throughout the US too. You'll have to search based on what city you're close to, or reach out to me and I can maybe point you to one. But it helps if you have an organization of people. But if you have to start an organization locally because you're in a small town or you just don't already have one, that is also possible by reaching out to the group. And they basically have an agenda that is they want to decriminalize plant medicine. And so they're going to be reaching out to local politicians, and they can urge you to look up and write to the politicians that are in your district, which when I was in Washington and I first reached out to Decriminalize Nature, that's like the first step they have you do is start writing to your politicians. You can create like an example. There's example letters they have like, dear so-and-so, but if you add any personalized message, I'm sure that gets through also, if you've benefited from using psychedelics in any way, shape, or form, that's only going to help your case. But reaching out to your local politicians and letting them know that you need to see the laws changed, that this is an effort that not only you are behind, there are other people behind it. The more people you can get in to write to politicians, the better. And then personally, I've been involved a little more on the graphic design part of decriminalization because that's my background is doing art stuff. So I've made some posters for Decrim Seattle and also the Entheo Society of Washington when they were trying to get more people involved to volunteer, that kind of a thing, like just making graphics. But they have, if you're really good at number crunching, I'm sure they can put you to use. If you're good at something specific, volunteer based on what your field is. And then when I moved out of state, they actually decriminalized shortly after that in Washington. So big congrats to those guys. And in Michigan, when I moved here, our prosecutor is totally on board, and he's already decriminalized in the county that I live in. And so reaching out to Decriminalize Nature here, they were also looking for some artwork, and I had a part in doing some of the beginning stuff. And then they kind of just have taken off. There's a really big Michigan chapter. And because I live in an area where it is already decriminalized, I've been urged to get involved with the Psychedelic Society and the statewide efforts, which are coming up for 2024. And you can be trained to take part in like signature gathering. As long as you're working with one of these organizations, a lot of times they already have an agenda going on and can kind of point you in the right direction. But right now it's writing to the politicians locally here too, that letting them know that the people want the change. So those are my ways to get involved. And then just advocate too. Like, I consider overall, like, what's your job title? What's your whatever? I'm a psilocybin advocate, like, is above anything else. Like, and so I don't like to, I talk about it with people. I'm pretty open. I've talked to my doctors about it. I'm not saying that everybody has to be that person, but like the more that we have those people, me telling my doctor that, like, yeah, I've been able to stay off pharmaceuticals because I microdose from time to time, and them hearing like there is value to taking mushrooms and it has benefited me and it continues to benefit me, and it also continues to benefit a lot of people around me. And so I've seen it heal people. I think it is possible, and given the right dose and the right protocols and those kinds of things, I think it's totally possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it's really all about just planting a seed. Like, I love what you're saying. It's like, just make it simple. Just have a conversation. If you're going through something, be really present with that, who's around you, because oftentimes, like, I notice this as a coach, it's like when I end up working with a new client, they're often in a similar situation as I've been in the past, or going through something similar right now, and we can learn from each other and grow with each other. And it's like that in like any kind of world or realm, you're going to be attracting that which is like in your space. Either it's coming in a spiral, something from your past that's coming up and you're approaching it from new light, or it's something that it's meeting you at the present moment. So if you're just like, okay, I'm going through this, I'm getting off of SSRIs, mushrooms are working for me, I've had these benefits, like, who's in your life? Are you working with a therapist? Are you working with a doctor? Is there somebody else that's, on SSRIs and struggling, or somebody who's getting off and going through crazy withdrawals, or somebody else who's microdosing where you guys can feed off of each other, or someone who's doing a heroic journey, or those retreats, or starting a business, or writing, or working, to change some of these laws. So, yeah, thank you so much for just, being real about that and keeping it simple. Because yes, there's like all of these things to do, and there's a lot of work to do. But sometimes that's just where it starts, just planting a seed, talking about it. It was really hard for me to come out of the psychedelic closet. They were everything in my life for so long. And then I became a mom. And then my life changed, and I was like, oh shit, like, what do I do now? Because I can't go back to hospitality and tourism. Like, I'm sober, they kept me sober. I can't go backwards. So how do I be where I'm at without, the law, without there being a witch hunt, without ending up like, hurting my son or being separated from him. So, it was really hard. Having these small little conversations really made a difference.
Yeah. And I mean, personally, I know for sure that cannabis has made me a better mom. It makes me more patient. It makes me more in the moment with my son. I also think psilocybin has lowered my anxiety, which I'm not proud of that ever coming out, but like, there's been situations as a mom that it's very trying. And, if you're already anxious, you're just like, it's not a good headspace. So I definitely think that both psilocybin and cannabis have both made me like not only a better person, but like a better mom too. And as moms, we get judged for all sorts of things, like whether you're parenting one way or the other way or whatever. And, I hope someone judges me as a great mom because I am, using I'm using plant medicine that benefits myself to the point where I can pass that on to my son, and I can spend a better quality time with him, and more patience, and and more laughter too. There's nothing wrong with that. So, yep.
Yeah, I get it totally. It's quite crazy, the stigma on it, because like I love psychedelics so much, and even I went to that. Like I went to those places of fear. It's so crazy for me. But I just posted recently, somebody had made a t-shirt about moms who smoke weed are still good moms. So I went onto my merch site and I'm like, okay, so moms who take psychedelics are great moms. So I gotta get you one of those, or I'll send you the graphic and you can do something with it. It's fun.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah. The synchronicities of life, right? But, it's so true. How great is it to be present? The Toltec path to freedom is doing your best every day. Well, doing your best may change depending on how you feel. Are you overwhelmed and, anxieties are creeping in? We only have so much willpower in a day if we're using it all for this thankless job, which is parenting. Sometimes these other things will creep in. But if our only job is, and the Toltec freedom is to just do our best, and that means being present and understanding for ourselves that what was our best yesterday may not be our best today. And that our best today, starting something new or a new routine with our child, maybe tomorrow will be easier and our best may be better. So it's about meeting yourself where you're at. And when you're working with medicines like cannabis and mushrooms, especially microdosing mushrooms, it's like you can be really present in the moment. When you're doing a big heroic journey, you're getting like highs, like fuck, elevated with like the Buddha highs, something like that.
Ironically, I have a harder time finding those kinds of times because I'm a parent. But
yeah, exactly.
Gotta get a babysitter on those times. But
yeah, and when you're doing those kinds of journeys, it's like you're taken for a ride. But when you're microdosing, you're an active participant. So you get to be more present. You get to like notice these little things, and it helps you just be your best in that moment. It helps you see beyond what the challenge is and actually like exceed it or laugh into it. You're talking about that saying that man said, we're not eating mushrooms, but we are mushrooms.
Yeah, Darren LeBaron.
Okay, so how did it go?
We are not humans living a mushroom experience. We are mushrooms living a human experience.
Yeah, I got out of one of my worst trips. It was like such a bad trip. I thought I was dying. And then I remembered, I ate mushrooms. And then what got me out of it is I started to laugh because I'm like, I didn't consume the mushrooms. The mushrooms consumed me. And I just laughed and laughed. And I was like so free in that moment. I was
part of like the intensity, like with the macrodose is like, for me is like feeling like you totally lose control. Like yeah, exactly. The mushrooms took you for a ride. Like, and sometimes they'll show you things that are emotional. Sometimes they'll show you things that are hilarious. They take you all kinds of places. And I think it's best just to embrace wherever you're going.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I just got a really nice gift. Honey Crisp Apple Kombucha. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh, that sounds awesome. Like, no, but I've been making Honey Crisp shrub lately. I don't know if you're into shrubs. It's like a vinegar fruit, like syrup kind of thing. You can add it to drinks. But Granny Smith jalapeno. It's good.
Whoa, that would be good. Yeah, that's cool. I haven't experimented in those ways. Like I make elderberry syrup and things usually in the fall, and I want to get more into what am I thinking? Like just infusions in general. At one of the farms, we were using a lot of essential oils for things, but now we're thinking like maybe just infusing with oils, and instead of doing tinctures, doing things like with apple cider vinegar. That way, for people who have alcohol issues, like myself getting sober in 2014, like my body literally rejects it now. I think because of the mushrooms and different psychedelics. Like, so I can take a little bit of a tincture, but I don't like, my body doesn't like it. And then for other people, even with cannabis tinctures, I've seen alcoholics where they get like really bad with it, or even burn their tongue or different things because they still can't get enough. So, using apple cider vinegar instead, or different oils, or there's tons of different things to explore. I don't know what I'm doing most of the time, but playing.
I would love if there was a way to make mushroom kombucha that, like, the whole thing with that would be like the shelf life would be terrible. But like, yeah, if you had a way to like just sell it and use it within that week or whatever, like, yep, that would be awesome.
There is a brand out there. I don't find it everywhere. It's a kombucha company. And then they started making this 5 mushroom blend, and you can get it as cola or root beer or different kinds of regular pops, but it's all made out of mushrooms.
I think I've seen that one. I've had the root beer one.
Oh, yeah, so good. My son loves it. He always calls kombucha burping potion, too. Works every time.
I might start calling it that.
Yeah. Kids are great. Yeah. We got about 10 minutes left here. I mean, I'm sure we could talk all day, but I want to get the most out of this. So I'm curious, when it comes to the integration space, I know you've got lots of experience, like with the preparation and just with the experience in general, but what do you recommend, or how do you recommend individuals approach the integration process following an experience? What kind of practices and things you recommend?
Well, first of all, I recommend like trying to set up for the experience itself. I think that, having a really good set and setting, especially on like a macro trip or something like that, where it's going to make you kind of lose your control and that kind of a thing, can be a little disorienting for someone that's not prepared for it. So preparing for it, like knowing kind of what to expect, I think is helpful. I know that's not integration, but I think that helps overall. And then post taking like a macrodose, I think reflection is always helpful for me. I like to kind of journal about it if I had anything that came up that I felt like was of note. Like journaling about it, I think, is helpful. And I always urge, if there's anything really extreme that comes up, there's the Fireside Project, that outreach organization that is built for people who have gone through like a traumatic kind of a thing, and they're trained for integration. I personally, I'm still learning about the integration. I'm reading a book right now called Psychedelic Integration, and it's huge. And so I am in the process mostly of like learning about that. And I do not like to label myself as like a guide or anything like that. I can answer questions about mushrooms, but integration is not my specialty. Although I think being kind to yourself is really good advice for anyone. And, especially like when you're kind of learning from an experience, what happens is like our brains kind of shift out of our default mode of thinking, and so we can kind of process and think about trauma and things and experiences in life, I guess a little differently when we're on mushrooms. And so that kind of a shift, I'm sure, depending on your mindset going into it, can be kind of abrupt. And so, the realizations that come about from that, I urge people to talk about it if they have anything intense that came up, and to have a support system, whether it's, like I mentioned, that Fireside Project, or there's a ton of microdosing and macrodosing communities online. I'm very quick to point out a lot of these communities for specifics. Like there's a mom's group I'm a part of. There's, psychedelics and chronic pain. There's all kinds of different groups. That's mostly what I get. I don't know. I get a lot out of being in these groups and like reading about other people's experiences and stuff. And I think I can point someone there, but the integration is not my specialty in terms of how to use the mushrooms. I think just being kind to yourself and going into it with kind of a healthy mindset about the mushrooms is what I can best prepare you for.
Yeah. Yeah. That's honestly, it's such great advice. I like asking these questions just because, it's not about being professional in it. It's that you've been working with these medicines, it's this personal experience. And I think what you mentioned will resonate with a lot of people. So thanks for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I am kind of working with the infographics. I am working towards like kind of a journaling setup so that someone could get like the full guide and then have a portion where it's more personalized and that you can use it as kind of a tool for that kind of a thing too. So I'd like to break that down and make it very simple, but I'm still in my learning process when it comes to that.
So what is it that you're working on right now other than the infographics, and how can anybody contact you and get in touch and support you on your journey right now?
So beyond all the chocolates, I do answer a lot of emails. If anyone ever has questions for me, you can reach out to me at bluemoodfood@gmail.com. I will try to get back to you as timely as possible. And if I don't know the answer, I can at least point you to somebody who does. So I spend a lot of time doing that. Along with that, developing like chocolates and infused things that can be fun to be used for microdosing and macrodosing. Yeah, if anyone wants to reach out via email or my Instagram, Bluemoodfood2 on Instagram, I can be reached there. And just going forward, I'm going to be working a little more decriminalized nature in 2024 for the statewide effort and advocating for that. I think I'm going to do some citywide advocating, although it's decriminalized in my county. My city itself is not. So that's a small step I can take, even though I'm like protected. I think it can still be more transparent. And then, going forward, we'll see where decriminalization takes us. Right now I'm growing in a decriminalized area, but that doesn't leave a lot of room for like, I don't know, I wish I could have a cafe that I could have like an integration specialist and like have everyone set up there. Like you could learn about mushrooms. You can buy mushrooms. You can maybe not take them on site unless it's a scheduled thing. But, that's my dream world is like I could just have a mushroom center of some sort.
Yeah, I think that's a collective dream going on. You have no idea
how
often. I'm glad that so many in this space are now hopping aboard that collaboration vibration, though, because things are happening fast. This movement is growing. We've mentioned it a few times. It was once such a niche, and now it's so expansive. It's beautiful, but
as
it's
more
also
research comes out, I think it's only going to continue to grow. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here, Janelle. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll have to have you on again. I'm going to continue following, and we'll stay in touch along the way as well. But yeah, thank you so much. Everybody go check out Bluemoodfood 2 on Instagram and spittingtoadgenetics.com, because that's where you'll find the blog and all kinds of different things.
And some links to some good info and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you are going to love this girl. You're going to love the feed just as much as me. I know it. Yeah, we'll talk soon. Peace and love.
Great. Thank you so much, Ashley. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's